Hello everybody, this is the first unit in the section called Contested. It's called Contested because these units deal with the topics that lawyers are most afraid of changing, hence they fight to keep them. Plain language rules, however, say that all the issues that we will cover must be changed. When following these rules in practice, you must bear in mind that if you're writing for a partner or senior lawyer, they may prefer you to use legalese as they hold on to the old-fashioned belief that it is professional or lawyerly. In that case, obviously, you must write in the way that they prefer. Saying that, remember the following. The idea that legalese is required by and from lawyers is outdated and incorrect. Academic studies show that lawyers, judges and other legal professionals prefer plain English to legalese. All English-speaking governments, the EC, the OECD and many other organisations prefer you to use plain English, and even if you are pressured to use legalese now, as your careers advance, there's nothing to stop you from implementing these rules later on. Okay, without further ado, let's have a look at Unit 7, which looks at archaic legal wording. What's the problem? Well, it's the use of archaic legal wording in legal writing. Why is this a problem? Archaic legal wording is unnecessarily complicated and, well, just archaic. The criticism of this legal wording is just as archaic as people have indeed complained about these terms for hundreds of years. Archaic legal wording is the byproduct of a legal language which changed from Latin to French to English. Archaic legal wording makes the reader's life difficult as the reader might, and usually does, struggle to understand what these words mean, which ultimately could lead to misunderstanding and confusion. I'm sure you've been in the position where you've read through a document and met several where words or here words or there words, and you've had to stop, scratch your head for a bit to work out what they mean, and then go back to the beginning to make sense of it all. Now imagine what John Brown on the street would think when he has to read the same legal writing. In many cases, he would simply just give up. When you think that this language is used in customer contracts, documents from banks and so on, you can see why this language makes a layperson's legal position weaker. If you don't understand something, how are you meant to question it? Well, what's the solution? Identify archaic legal wording in your writing and redraft those examples into plain English. How? In general, legalese can be subdefined as legalese structures and legalese wording. Most of the units in this course look at legalese structures. For example, all of Section 1, Units 8 and 10 of Section 2, and the whole of Section 3. You can see the size of the problem now. A few units look at specific legalese wording issues. For example, this unit, Unit 9, Unit 10, Unit 11 and Unit 12. This unit deals with archaic legalese wording, that is, words prefixed with here, there, where, for and above. For example, heretofore, therein, whereby, forthwith and above mentioned. Unfortunately, in your legal careers, you'll have no choice but to understand these words and how to use them in practice. But the idea of the exercises below is not to make you use them, quite the opposite. Once you know what they are, you can redraft accordingly and remove them, particularly when writing to clients. Under no circumstances should your opinions or emails to clients include these archaic words. To show you why you should avoid archaic legalese wording, look at the example sentence. There are many legalese structures in this sentence. However, we will only fix the legalese term herein. Herein means in this. The valid and often litigated question is in what? Does herein refer only to this subsection, this section, or the whole contract? We can all make an educated assumption as to what it might mean, but that highlights my point. The mere fact that two people might come up with two different answers suggests that the term is ambiguous. If there's confusion, you get litigation. It is possible, however, to translate the Legalese term to its plainer English alternative, which also has the effect of removing any ambiguity. Let me highlight that point. The plain English alternative removes any ambiguity. For example, would it not be simpler, more accurate, and more easily understandable for the client to precisely state the provisions in this subsection, or in this section, or in this contract? The other form of Legalese wording is shall. We'll have a look at that troublemaker in Unit 9. Regarding Legalese structures, we can identify a nominalization, this is a topic that we looked at in Units 4 and 5, and a passive structure, which we'll have a look at in the next unit. The example sentence contained only one archaic legalism and didn't provide much context, so let's have a look at another example. Take a few moments to read the example text. Please pause the video to read the text at your own speed. What are the problems here? Well, there are a few. Firstly, the reader might not know what the terms whereupon, thereof, and therefore mean. If they don't know what the terms mean, how are they meant to understand the text? Another issue is that the reader might be confused, as very often therefore is written with an E at the end. Looking at this text, people might think the therefore used here was a typo, or might mistakenly think that it's being used as a linker introducing a concluding phrase. Let's look again at the Legalese in context and see if we can translate those words into easier to understand versions. Whereupon becomes on the basis of which, thereof becomes of the contract, and therefore becomes for the work or remaining work. But by simply translating the Legalese, we haven't really made the reader's life any easier. We now know what the Legalese words mean, but in terms of the whole structure of the text, it's not really any clearer. What we really need to do is to consider the text as a whole and ask ourselves, what is the basic message? If we do that, we might get the following. The person must comply with the terms and conditions within 3 days' notice of the resolution being adopted. If not, the legislative body will withdraw the contract. The street superintendent will then advertise for new bids for the contract or the remaining work in the contract. The contract must be awarded under the provisions of this article. Think about the revised version. We've communicated the same message using simpler sentence structures, no archaic legalese wording, and we can read it once and be informed. Please note, the language is still appropriate and formal. We have not made the text any less legal or professional, just easier to understand. Believe me, your client will thank you for that. Okay, let's recap. Analyze your writing to find legalese words and legalese structures. If you find any of those, redraft the word or structure into plainer English. Now we know what the problem is, why it is a problem, and how to fix the problem, we can now test the rule by doing the questions below. However, if you're unsure about any of the points which I've made, please go back and watch the video again. Feel free to pause the video to review all examples at your own speed. After you do a question below, you can click to see a suggested answer. Just before you get started though, please note the following. Please read the question and the hint carefully to make sure you complete the questions properly. Don't just get stuck into the questions, read what you have to do first. In the suggested answer, there may also be further comments to a particular question, so please read these comments carefully. The suggested answers are just that, suggested. There may of course be other also correct ways to answer each question. I've tried to put in as many variants as I can, but for obvious reasons I can't write every single correct answer. So, as long as your answer follows the main points highlighted in the suggested answer, your answer should be okay. The questions are designed to practice the rule in this unit, so although you can make further corrections to the rest of the text based on the other rules in the course, the answer only concentrates on the rule in this unit. And finally, please don't get lost in the legalities of the question text. It's there only to provide material to practice the rule, not to be a law lesson. All that being said, off you go.